Welcome to Dr. K's Lecturecast in Anatomy. So, we are continuing with the facial nerve part 2. I'm going to talk about the clinical testing and lesions at various levels of the facial nerve and its symptoms. So, here we already saw in facial nerve 1 presentation about the clinical testing of what muscles are checked: the frontalis, dilators of the mouth, buccinator, and orbicularis oculi. I'll add one more YouTube link at the end of this presentation so that you can see how the clinical testing of facial nerve is done. Okay, so you saw frontalis means there should be normal horizontal wrinkles over the forehead. Dilators of the mouth, they should be able to open their mouth and show the teeth. Buccinator, the whistling action should be performed. And orbicularis oculi, the subject should be able to tight closure the eyes against resistance. So, what are the lesions of the facial nerve at various levels and what are the associated symptoms? Let's discuss one by one, and please follow each and every word what I'm going to talk here. When you follow that, the lesions, if I say the associated symptoms, it will be easy for you to tell it out. Infranuclear lesion. So, what happens is, see here, let's go to the next slide so that it will be easy for you to understand. Can you see here? The facial nerve, once it emerges, okay, and exits through the stylomastoid foramen, we saw it gives branches which supply the muscles of facial expression. This is the motor nucleus of the facial nerve. Okay, so I'll just draw and show you a simple diagram. Okay, now I'm not very good artist, but let's draw a face. Okay, so now first let's divide the face into 4 quadrants, and let this be the cerebral cortex, and then the motor nucleus of the facial nerve, and here let's take here as the stylomastoid foramen. So we know the facial nerve gives branches here, isn't it? 5 terminal branches: temporal, zygomatic, buccal, marginal mandibular, and then the cervical. Okay. So what happens is this facial nerve, the upper part of the body, upper part of the face. Okay. Whatever the branches comes here, whatever the branches supply here is reflected to the opposite cortex as well as to the same cortex, same side of the cortex. Can you understand? The upper part of the face on both the side bilaterally represented, that is, it crosses and goes to the opposite cortex as well as to the same cortex, whereas the lower part, let's take some other color. Lower part goes only to the opposite side. Whatever the branches are supplied here, supplying the lower part, goes only to the opposite side. So this is, if a lesion happens above the nucleus, it is supranuclear. If the lesion happens below the nucleus, can you see? This is, or at the level of the stylomastoid foramen, or below the nucleus anywhere, okay, that is infranuclear lesion. Supranuclear lesion, and here it is the infranuclear. Okay, so now tell me, if it is infranuclear, Here there is no crossing over. So if the, take this one as the left side. So if the left side lesion occurs below the nucleus, infranuclear, the same side half of the face is affected. That is, this side of the face become expressionless. No movement of frontalis, the orbicularis oculi doesn't function, so no closure of the eyes, and the dilator, if the subject attempts to smile, this will be deviated to the opposite side. This side won't work, and the mouth and this aspect will be left open, and there will be dripping of saliva. And what is the last one we saw? The puffing, the buccinator action won't happen. So this side there will be weakness of the facial muscles. So infranuclear lesion, no crossing over occurs till the facial, till they reach the motor nucleus of the facial nerve. So same side of the face is affected. Whereas supranuclear, the upper part of the face is bilaterally represented. So even if this side is affected, that part of the face is saved by the bilateral representation. So nothing happens to the upper half of the face, whereas the lower half of the opposite side, can you see? Opposite side is affected. So please remember this. Now let's get back to the presentation. So facial nerve lesions, infranuclear lesion, which is otherwise called as Bell's palsy. Can you see here? Absence of forehead wrinkling because of the impaired function of the frontalis muscle, droopy eyelid, or excessive tearing because the lacrimal secretion is also disrupted. Facial paralysis, the prominence of the cheek muscle, the buccinator is not seen, and drooping corner of the mouth because dilators of the mouth doesn't open, so it's kept open and saliva dribbles down. Where it happens mostly at the stylomastoid foramen, so upper and lower quadrants of the same side of the face gets affected. Supranuclear lesion, can you see here? The lower half of the face is represented only in the opposite cortex, whereas the blue color, when you trace out, the facial nerve supplying the upper quadrant of the face is represented in both the cortex. That is called as the bilateral representation. So even if this side goes off, this side of the representation or projection will save the upper half of the face. So whenever there is a supranuclear lesion, if this side of the face, lower quadrant, is affected, if it is in the right side, it affects the opposite lower half of the face. So now what happens? Okay, this is supranuclear and infranuclear lesion. So the branches we already discussed: greater petrosal nerve, nerve to stapedius, chorda tympani, and at the stylomastoid foramen gives terminal branches. What happens? Let's go from below. If there is a injury here to the facial nerve, only the terminal branches supplying here is cut. So that is Bell's palsy. What happens if it is cut above the chorda tympani? Chorda tympani affects both salivation and the taste sensation from the anterior two-third of the tongue. So add the lesion symptom, what happens in the stylomastoid foramen also. So add Bell's palsy, loss of taste sensation from anterior two-third of the tongue, and loss of salivation because the saliva is disrupted because the chorda tympani also carries secretomotor fibers to the submandibular and sublingual salivary gland. What happens if there is a lesion above the branch to the nerve to stapedius? Whenever there is excess sound, the stapes vibrates. The stapes is a bone, but stapedius is a muscle controlling the vibration of the stapes. So even a small sound will be heard as a loud sound. That is called as hyperacusis, that condition. So add Bell's palsy, loss of taste sensation and salivation, and add hyperacusis. What happens if there is a lesion at the geniculate ganglion? What is the function of greater petrosal nerve when we traced out? It helps in the lacrimation, helps in carrying the secretomotor fibers to the lacrimal gland, and so there is loss of lacrimation at the level. So add Bell's palsy, everything is lost. See here? So add Bell's palsy, chorda tympani means taste sensation is lost, salivation is lost, hyperacusis occur, and no lacrimation, loss of lacrimation. What is this crocodile tears syndrome? We read something called as Fraze syndrome related to parotid gland. That is sweating and redness of the skin along with salivation. What happens here is whenever there is a facial nerve damage near the geniculate ganglion, the secretomotor fibers which supply the submandibular salivary gland regenerates and lies within the neural sheath which supplies the lacrimal gland. So now what happens? Whenever the patient salivates, they also lacrimate. That is called as crocodile tears syndrome. What is Ramsay-Hunt syndrome? Herpes zoster infection of the geniculate ganglion. So now what happens if there is a lesion in the geniculate ganglion? We saw Bell's palsy, loss of taste sensation from the anterior two-thirds of the tongue, loss of salivation, hyperacusis, and loss of lacrimation. So all these are symptoms of Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, but that is not a lesion but an infection, herpes zoster infection. The ganglia related to the facial nerve, I told you, pterygopalatine ganglion, geniculate ganglion, and submandibular ganglion. So for a revision again, I have added the pathway of the submandibular ganglion, the secretomotor pathway from the superior salivatory nucleus to the salivary glands, and then the pterygopalatine ganglion. And here the geniculate ganglion is also related. So these are the pathways which you can revise here. And whenever the facial nerve is asked, you should also mention about the ganglia related to the facial nerve as well. So take these slides and videos as a quick review of specific topics, and it is not a guide to any treatments or surgical procedures. If you like my lecture, give a thumbs up and share it among your friends, and please press the subscribe button so that my videos which I'm going to upload in the future will be notified to you. We'll see you in another cranial nerve or an artery in the next lecture.